Green Stuff World has sent me this packet of Intensity Inks. This is set 1. And it has Swamp Brown, Crimson Magenta, Viridis Green, Hydromel Yellow, Phoenix Orange and Sanguinum Red. So a pretty good variation of colours there. And I've not seen these inks before. They are for airbrush and manual painting apparently. 6 in the set. And yeah, they sound like airbrush paints. They sound pretty thin, which is what I expected them to be. Now, if they're anything like the other paints that I've got of theirs, you actually have to pierce the top in order to open them. So let's have a look a second. And I can't tell whether anything's going to come out of there. No, nothing's going to come out of there. So they do need to be pierced. Now there is a little bit of seepage just around the top there. In fact, on this one, the nozzle is kind of skewed. I don't know what's happened to it. It's very skewed. Anyhow, I'm going to give it a good shake because they probably do need shake. Actually, check first, but they probably do need shaking. It doesn't actually say, but okay, I'll shake it anyway, just in case. And I'll pierce the top with a pin. There we go. Out comes the paint. So I'm just going to put a little dab on a white tile. This is the ceramic, glossy ceramic white tile. I haven't got any water on the brush. And it's drying very fast. It is not glossy, it is matte. And it put down a pretty good amount of colour considering I didn't have much ink there. And yeah, I'd almost say it's like a very, very thin gouache. But obviously the difference between a watercolour and a gouache and these is that these are designed to go on plastics and metals, and a gouache or a watercolour wouldn't. But for the effect, oh, it's not actually dry. For the effect of it, yes, I would say that is what it is. Now you've got to be careful when you're opening these up because you do not want to splash this on your clothing. And sometimes with these bottles, when you pull a pin out, sometimes you'll find that the bottle top is a little loose and tries to come off as well, and then paint can go absolutely everywhere, which is not what you want with colours this intense, believe me. Okay, so let's go for the next one, which is the Hydromel Yellow. Oops, see what I mean? I got splatted. Oh, at least my desk did. Luckily I didn't. Luckily I have a washable desk. Again, that one seems to have a wonky top. I don't know if it's deliberately wonky or whether it's accidental, but they are definitely wonky. It's one of my favourite colours. Decided that erring on the side of caution was probably a good idea, and it looks like that was definitely a good idea because it did leak out of it. But there we go. Right. Let's just spread these out just a little so you can see what the colour swatches are like. A lovely yellow. And all the colours are nice. Oh, well, I'd say all, but I'm not overly bothered about brown, I have to confess. It wouldn't be my favourite colour. I like the magenta. It's like a raspberry colour and it's magenta. And here we go, the brown. So that is what those colours are like, and they do give pretty good coverage. Now they are very thin, very liquidy indeed, and so they will go into crevices, and obviously the more they go into crevices, the more depth of colour you will get. It's like anything, it will pool in the crevices and therefore will intensify, and that's probably why they are called intensity inks, because they won't just stay on the surface. If you're painting a curved surface, they will go over the curve into areas that are below that level. So yeah, I like the colours, I think they're great, and they do have a pretty good cover. This one is now dry. As I said, it is very matte. It is not a gloss one, which I quite like. Some people prefer glossy ones. I quite like matte because you have a choice. If you want to make it glossy, you can put a gloss over it. So this is matte. You don't have to have a glossy finish on it if you don't want to. So I'm going to let my son try painting a model that he's made, a 3D printed model, and I'm going to let him try to paint part of that with some of these inks and see what he thinks of it, because I know I can use these on a flat surface and they're fine. I can see what they're going to do. I am not really a model maker. I tend to work in 2 dimensionals usually rather than 3. So I'm going to let him have a go at doing part of a model that he's made and see what he thinks of them, see if he likes the effect that they give. So here's my son having a go at airbrushing the backpack of this creature that he's actually 3D printed. And we had a go at painting the backpack before, but I just didn't have the right paints to do it anyway. So he's just giving this a little go, and his comments were that he would prefer to use the more solid colours that he has at home, but this would be good for washes. The next thing he wanted to try was to see how well the colours would blend if they were airbrushed. Now, bearing in mind at the moment we're using a very, very low power airbrush, a bit underpowered really, in that the compressor is a very, very low powered desktop one. So he's just going backwards and forwards with some of the reddish colour, and the intention is to put something over the top of that and to see whether the colours blend fairly easily or not. Now that the red is down, he's going to try going over with some of the yellow. You can see in the top right corner, that's what the yellow originally looks like. And now he's just gone over with a little drop of that over the top of the red, and you can see that that is blending quite nicely, and you'll get an orange, so the red will still show through the yellow on the top. So his conclusion was that he'd be quite happy to use them as washes and for colour blending, which, depending on the types of models you're making, is quite a useful thing to be able to do. So what do I think of these intensity inks? I think they're pretty good. I think I might be tempted to use these on maybe some wooden projects on the CNC at some point when I do some of those. They aren't the sort of things that I would normally use on paper because I don't need to, I've got normal inks for that. If you are doing anything which has ridges and areas of shade that you want to have ink sink into, this will be ideal. They're very liquid, they will run into pools where needed. If you want to do colour shading and blending a bit more easily with an airbrush, or probably even with a normal manual brush, they should do that pretty well with a bit of practice. Airbrushing is definitely going to be the easier way of doing that. It always is easier for blending as long as you have enough control over your airbrush. Now, the airbrush that I was using earlier was attached to, as I said, a very low capacity compressor. I do have a larger capacity compressor, and I didn't really want to use it because the more air pressure you have, the more things spread around my desk, and I didn't really want it going absolutely everywhere. And it's very difficult to film if you have to film inside a painting booth. So yeah, I think they're pretty good inks. They are much stronger in colour than I anticipated them being, and the colour selection is pretty good. So yeah, if that's what you're after, if you want something that is a little bit like an airbrushed gouache, if you're familiar with those artistically, then this will probably suit your needs quite well. Do bear in mind it is not transparent, they're not candy colours. They are slightly opaque, they are flat matte colours, not gloss, and they are principally made for the airbrush. But there we go, that's our honest opinion of the Green Stuff World Intensity Ink Set.